Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's Leadership Book of the Month. I'm Kelly, and we are excited to dive into a book that's transformative about communication and relationship. And we are so lucky to have the author with us today. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
great to be here.
it's exciting to have you with us. And hey, Brett.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. We'll get to our introductions in just a second. But for anybody that's new to our broadcast, we welcome all of you. But if you're new, we created this 3 years ago, and this is book number 35 for us. Isn't that exciting? I did a couple before going lives in this format, but it's been a pretty exciting journey for us these last 3 years, and we're excited to have Ann with us. She's worked in consulting, started a consulting firm more than 20 years ago, and worked with some really high-powered companies, Boeing, Medtronic, Hitachi, plus some great nonprofits, the United Way, and many, many others. And now spends her time writing and reading and researching and hiking and playing pickleball.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, you can never really retire if you're an author. You can retire from consulting. So I've done that, but I don't really use the word because
Yeah, you're still busy and doing a lot. So, and we thank you for these books. And this one came out in 2022. So we'll dive into it in a minute. Hey, Brett, you want to do a quick intro and give us an update?
Sure. Bret Getzel, kind of an accomplished sales leader, mostly in the food service space. Been what I always say, I'm on the back nine of my career now, but just really enjoying things. And as Kelly pointed out, her and I came to know one another through our connection at Rockers during our MBA time. And that kind of grew out of this. I think she said 35 or 36 books now. I always look for one interesting highlight from month to month because we only get together on a monthly basis. And I really leaned in it. And I really thought it was kind of ironic. Our platform today is on LinkedIn. And I really leaned into my LinkedIn connections this month, as you're planning next year and kind of keeping those relationships fresh and all of that. I was overwhelmed really by how many people that I wasn't connected with that readily accepted my connections. And then obviously that's usually a gateway or a precursor to something that then happens outside of the LinkedIn platform. But it's such a powerful opportunity to create that network and reach out with people that you just normally wouldn't run into. So for those of you listening, I'm telling you what, leverage those relationships and leverage that network. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of LinkedIn. Get more active there.
Exactly.
We're live on LinkedIn, and I'm not sure if we're live on YouTube as well, but it will be posted on YouTube if it's not live there. And if you are joining us live, you're welcome to post comments. And I'm going to switch my screen over here so I can see them if they come in, post comments. And if you post some after the broadcast, if you watch this later, you can still post comments because I'll see those and be able to answer your questions or reach out to Ann or Brett for answers as well. And we created this the whole purpose is to be to serve leaders as they are continuing their development. We say we want to inspire leaders of tomorrow who invest in themselves today. And so we appreciate being part of your leadership journey. And I'll post the website if you want more information about the Leadership Book of the Month. You can go to that website, voyagecg.com/leadership-books. And all right, let's dive in. So the reason this book was chosen, although I've had it for a couple of years, but it was mentioned in Clarity with Jim Vasilopoulos a couple months ago. And so I called Brett's attention to it and he jumped on it. And so we are excited to have it. Plus the topic, the disconnect principle, eliminate difficult conversations with clarity and empathy. So we know at the end of the year, there's a lot of difficult conversations because of year end and the pressures of wrapping up a quarter, wrapping up a year, and the holidays and all of that pressure, family stuff. So we know that the specific framework here will come in handy. And I did do a little bit of an intro about Ann. I forgot to say she's known as the Queen of Clarity. So we're extra lucky to get to ask her all kinds of questions. Let me see. I think I mentioned most of the things I was going to mention. She's written several books, including The Power of Clarity, which was named one of the 10 best business books in 2021 by Thinkers 360. So Ann is retired from consulting that she started years ago, and spends a lot of time doing a lot of fun, interesting things, like hiking and pickleball, and still writing as well. She graduated magna cum laude from Tufts University with a degree in mathematics. And how do you go from that to this and to your consulting? You've had such a great journey. So all right, so let's dig in. So what was the impetus for the book? What inspired you to write this one in the first place?
Well, I got a call from a client who was struggling to deal with a difficult employee, and he asked me, for my advice, and I taught him everything I knew about giving feedback, everything I had read, everything I'd been taught, everything I'd tried, and got him all set up, ready to walk in and give this guy feedback. And he was primed, man. He was confident. He was standing tall. He knew exactly what he needed to do. And then he failed again. He came out of there, just said it just went so badly. And that, just hit me over the head, because it was at that time that I realized what was missing from all the advice we've ever been taught about giving people feedback. So that's what inspired the whole book, was to be sure other people don't have to go down that path. And it's a path I'd gone down too, of, doing everything I'd been told about giving feedback and not having it go so well, and dreading it, and wondering, is there another way? Can I avoid it? Can I push it off longer? So how do you get to the crux of these problems and solve them instead of agonizing or failing?
And leaders do agonize over it and put it off. And so that I say sometimes, don't be a chicken, have the conversation. So they do kind of just hope it gets better, or hope the person leaves, or hope they suck it up and stay. But there's misery all around when that happens, isn't there?
Sure is.
Yeah. Right. You want to chime in?
Dreaded things.
I was interested to hear, you said that the manager that you were coaching was very well prepared. And as Kelly and I were doing our pregame, that's one of the things that we talked about, is having a script or being prepared for these encounters, these engagements. And I'm curious to kind of expand on that. This gentleman, as you pointed out, was well prepared, and it still didn't go well. Do you have any idea on how that came to be?
Well, and that's why I came, I had my epiphany and understood what was going on and saw what was missing. And the problem is that he walked in there knowing exactly what to say, but not what to think. And so while he was trying to say the correct words, because we'd all been taught, say this and sandwich things between nice stuff, and, all these techniques, and don't ask why, all the words to avoid, the words to use, we'd go in there knowing what to say. But the problem is that his body language and his tone of voice and his impromptu words didn't stay on the script. The thoughts in his head were being displayed to the employee. So he tried to say the right things, but it was clear that he was mad. He was upset. He was judging this employee. The employee got defensive and everything went to pot,
Right.
And this is what
so common.
You can go in there and try to say the right things, but you give it yourself away if you aren't controlling the thoughts in your head.
Yeah, if you go in with the mindset of, I know it all and do it my way, and I'm judging you for being so unprepared or doing such a bad job.
Yeah, you screwed up.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm going to read you the riot act. We need to set you straight. You can, and even milder versions of that,
Yeah.
One more time, here we go again. If you have any of those thoughts in your head, the employee's going to notice. I mean, they're not stupid. They can see that.
Well, and you did a great job of reframing in the beginning of the book, of saying, hey, when something doesn't go well, the only thing we know is that something didn't go well.
Right.
I thought that was a great way to kind of open the entire dialogue.
Right. And that is the disconnect principle. When something doesn't go as you expected, all you know for certain is that something didn't go as you expected. So you need to step back. You need to purge all those judgments in your head. We are so quick to assume that the other person screwed up, that we know what's going on, that but we only know half the story. So when you say that, all I know for certain is that something didn't go as I expected, I'm admitting that I don't know the whole story. So the best thing you can do in those circumstances is to just say, I think we have a disconnect. And when you say that, it's non-judgmental.
Mhm.
You're not blaming someone for anything. You're leveling the playing field. You're letting them, they're not put on the defensive. They just go, oh yeah, you're right. We have a disconnect. It didn't go the way you expected. It didn't go the way I expected. And because there's no way you know exactly what they did, and you certainly don't know why they did what they did. So I think we have a disconnect. When this happened, I expected this to happen, or, whatever. This is what I expected. That's not what happened. And
So
then
tell me more.
person
Let's
talk.
figure it out. Yeah.
It's an equal partnership, non-judgmental kind of conversation that lets everyone explain what went on, where things stand. And the next question, by the way, is, so where are we and what do we need to do next? So it's never about blame. It's about where are we? What needs to happen next? What do you need to do? What do I need to do? And oh, by the way, how can we avoid a disconnect like this in the future? So it's all about fixing that disconnect, not fixing the person.
Yeah.
Right.
So you
We
mentioned
talked
that
a little bit
David-
as we were going into this about this seems so easy, right? This seems so obvious. There's really nothing here that's overly sophisticated or complicated. It's relatively simple. And then you ask yourself, well, what makes it so difficult? What makes it so challenging? And we kind of came to the conclusion that it takes time and it takes a deliberate approach. It takes us, I don't know, you have to go into it intentionally, I guess is the best way to say it. And then we started talking a little bit about, do managers, do leaders, do they value this to the point where they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to have to invest 20 minutes or 30 minutes or however long it takes to actually execute the process. I'll get a good result, but at the end of the day, you know what, I have to allow for the other party to actually share their vision of what didn't go well. And then I have to evaluate and process that, which is a little bit of it's a more drawn out, more lengthy, more, it's a more involved process, I guess, to your point, rather than just simply rendering judgment.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's a very simple concept, though it is profound. Notice,
Yes, very profound.
It's a very simple concept, but it's not always easy. But the best thing about it is that anybody can very quickly learn to say, I think we have a disconnect.
Sure.
Mhm.
That is so easy. And it gives you time to step back and think, so when someone disappoints you, when something doesn't go the way you expected, all you have to do is say, I think we have a disconnect.
Yeah.
And so if you just memorize those words and use them frequently, you've already made a huge difference in every situation that's difficult.
Mhm.
Well, some of these other concepts, we've done the 7 Habits, we've done several other books, and it's always interesting. The things that have catchphrases like that, they tend to stick. And to your point, I think we have a disconnect. That's easy to remember. That's catchy. I mean, it's something that I really believe that once people adopt it and see value in it, it sticks. And you probably have experience in that regard as well. But I mean, I think it's easy.
Yeah.
My phrase that I've used for a long time is, I think we're out of sync. That's how I've said that. But while it takes time in the meeting with the person, the way Bret was talking, it saves a lot of time and agony outside of that meeting. The dread and the agony of having to build up to that hard meeting and that hard conversation. So it's a lot easier to, prepare still and get what your perspective is, but then you can go in, you don't have to have the solution and have everything figured out. So it reduces the work on the front end, I think.
Yeah. And it lets you, like I say, you say that phrase, I think we have a disconnect. And then you step back and you avoid those assumptions, the judgments, the preconceived notions about how the other person screwed up, and then you can have a better conversation. But it's all focused on fixing the disconnect, not fixing a person. When you fix a person, this is like, you've judged the person, you've decided they are a problem, you need to fix them, That's a really bad attitude, you know?
Yeah.
But if you focused on the disconnect, the situation, let's fix the situation. What happened here? What do we have to do next? And how can we prevent this from happening again? It's the situation. So you got to purge the bad thoughts in your mind that are, causing you to treat this person judgmentally. So,
Have
where are we? What do we need to do next?
When you've shared this in your speaking engagements and as with coaching people, have they resisted the, because it takes keen self-awareness to not be judgmental in those when you're upset about something. Have they resisted that, or what have been some of the challenges people shared?
Well, okay, so this is what I learned. So when I first started teaching my clients this, they latched onto it very quickly. Now, there's one organization where you can't go 15 minutes without hearing someone say, "I think we have a disconnect." At every level. It's employees dealing with each other about little problems that might have festered in the past. It's about managers dealing with difficult employees. And notice, we call them difficult employees.
Right.
No, we just have disconnects,
Yeah.
So they say it all the time, and that's the best start. But that is only chapter 1 of the book.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I had to write 7 other chapters
Yeah.
are the other problems that make it hard for us to really embrace the disconnect principle. So one of those, and I think they teach this in business schools, everyone knows this, is that there's positive feedback and there's constructive feedback, or let's be honest, negative feedback.
Negative, yeah.
The opposite of positive is not
Yeah.
constructive. Everyone knows that.
Oh, I was going to ask you before, you mentioned the sandwich technique.
Yeah.
And the employees know that too. So if they know there's been a mistake, and then you say, "Oh, you did a nice job on this, but it was 3 weeks late and there were typos," they know that but's coming and that it's not a good job. They're not stupid.
But the minute you think in terms of positive and constructive feedback, you are judging people.
Mm-hmm.
That's judgmental all by itself. So we have to quit that. All feedback should be constructive, because feedback is how we learn. It's got to be constructive. So instead of thinking, "Oh, I need to give someone negative feedback," you just say, "No, I think we need to go cure some disconnects." It's not negative, and it's not about them. It's about situations that, by the way, we all have a part in, both sides. If your poor communication can be the cause of what you think is their problem, so you got to focus on fixing the situation, not the person, and get rid of this whole dichotomy between negative and constructive. Negative and constructive, or positive feedback. And so those are the things that are in chapters 2, 3, and on. There's a few more I could talk about, but those are the ones that are so ingrained in us, just like our leap to judgment that someone else must be the person who screwed up, So those kinds of habits need to be broken. But if you start very simply and just say, "I think we have a disconnect," you have made it so much easier for yourself and the people around you to have a constructive conversation. And whether you're perfect in terms of, avoiding some of the other pitfalls, that can come later. But just by saying we have a disconnect, you are shifting the conversation and the focus to the situation, not the problems, the faults, the shortcomings of another human being, which is so uncomfortable.
Well, I like where you went, where you said you had an organization that in all levels they had adopted, the we have a disconnect language. If both parties understand that, they both can anticipate, where this is going to go next, right? We have a disconnect. Well, hey, you know what? That means we're going to talk, and I get to share my side of the story. Obviously, my supervisor or my counterpart is going to do the same, but at that point, we've established that everybody at the table is going to have a voice.
And I have a surprise for you. One of the fans of your book that gave a review in your book is here with us. Dr. Louise Harris is joining us. So Louise was invited to share. Louise, see Ann, and then there's Bret. You can meet Louise Harris.
Hi.
And Louise, we were just getting into the book and the disconnect principle. So I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm really happy to be here. And I've had lots of great experience with Ann's book, The Disconnect Principle.
Excellent.
Tell us
Well,
about it.
I'll give you one example. One of my clients and colleagues used it with new staff, particularly with between Boomer and Gen Z, where there are often disconnects.
Yeah, that's good.
And they found it really, really helpful. New staff can be more defensive, and very sensitive to feedback, especially when there's some power dynamics as well. And so he was having challenges with some of his new staff, and so he tried that approach of saying, I think we have a disconnect, starting with that, and then giving space for the new staff person to share what their struggles were or how they were seeing things. And it was really, really helpful. And, it's just exactly like Ann said, it avoided the defenses going up. They were up already a little bit.
Right.
Because, but it avoided them just kind of completely closing, right? And enabled the new staff member to have a little more confidence, to explain how they were thinking, and really gave my colleague the ability to have some insight and put aside what he thought was going on, what he thought were the attitudes and thoughts of the other person.
Luis, I'm curious, at what level of the organization was your client? Is this a senior executive? Was this a mid-level manager? Was this a frontline supervisor? Where in the organization was these particular people that you were working with?
Yeah. So in this situation, it was a small organization. So essentially, he was the one in charge.
Okay.
And the new staff was a junior manager.
Which plays to this idea, right, that even senior executives, people that are seasoned and been in the industry in leadership positions for years and years and years, can benefit from something as simple as this. I think we all fall into that trap of well, they know how to do this, right? They're a professional leader. They've been doing this. They obviously have had the training, the background, and as you can point out, and you just did, right? That's not always the case. I mean, it goes up and down the value chain, up and down the hierarchy of the organization, and that they can all benefit from something like this very easily and very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Louise, thank you so much for coming on. And do you want to know any more about Louise's experience? Is there any questions you would have for her?
You explain your experience. I think that's delightful. I hear it from so many people. It's not just in business that this works either. It works with your friends and your family and, volunteers in an organization. I find it incredibly valuable. I'm just amazed that it took me so long to come up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Ann, I think that's actually a really important point. And, back to what Bret was saying, was we don't naturally think that our assumptions are wrong. Like, no matter how experienced we are, we do not naturally think our assumptions are wrong. And just the phrase, I think we have a disconnect, just saying that, in a sense, we are talking to ourselves, my assumptions might be wrong.
Right.
And I think, that to me, that's one of the most powerful things about it, is putting ourselves in that space. My assumptions might be wrong.
Right. And furthermore, you're telling the other person that we have a disconnect. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. You're admitting that you don't know the whole story. So you're totally giving them permission to inform you, and to help you figure out where things are and what needs to be done next. So it's not about blame. It's not about judgment. It's all about what's the situation? How do we fix the situation? And how do we avoid another situation like this?
Yeah. And the other thing I thought would just kind of really hit me, Anne, as you were saying that the we have a disconnect is the we. It's not I have a disconnect and
Right.
therefore it's my responsibility to solve the issue. We have a disconnect. We both have wrong assumptions. And so we need to solve this together. And I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and that actually leads in beautifully to one of the other chapters of the book, and that is that when there was a book I read years ago that said, if you do something with someone, you're more likely to succeed. If you do something to someone, you're likely to fail. And this gets back to that we thing. And the problem is, if you think about so many of your typical management activities, they are doing to people. When you teach people, if they're not receptive, you're doing it to them. If you coach people, you're oftentimes doing things to them. Even setting expectations, you're doing things to them. You're telling them what they have to do. And so our default almost in business is to do things to people. And that's not a we. That's not about having an honest conversation about where things stand and what needs to be done next. So you need to shift your